One. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talk That Talk. We are back in our new segment of Let's Talk About It. And in today's episode, I have Mr. Alex Martinez with me. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about our favorite directors. I know there's a lot of good ones out there, plenty to go off the top of the head, but for me and Alex, we're just going to try to narrow it down to just our favorite director at the moment. Maybe give some honorable mentions if we have it, and then we'll go into the top three videos of our directors that we have. So without further ado, Alex, I'm going to let you jump in on this one. Go ahead and list off any directors you would like to talk about.
Okay, so when we think of directors, guys, right? We think of a lot of movies. We think of the bigger names: Tarantino, M. Night Shyamalan, Zack Snyder, all that stuff. What I look to in like good movies and good series of movies, like a franchise, um, is the impact it has, whether it's a solo movie or whether it is like a three-part series, trilogy or something. The impact it has and what you could take away from it and what you could refer to. Like one of the biggest things that we have going on at work right now is the Planet of the Apes. Every time someone sees me helping them out, they do this sign. And I'm like, that's pretty funny. So if you get it, you don't, then you're out of the loop. But yeah, so as far as that, I just feel like the impact on the culture, and then it doesn't have to be the best box office numbers out there because box office numbers can be fluctuated by a certain actor, all that stuff, and there's good movies out there without the top line actors, right? Um, but with that being said, this director has had well, before I get into my top direct, let me get an honorable mention from the 70s and 80s. Way before my time. Not way before. I'm not that young. Let me get this name right. Wolfgang Peterson. For those of you that don't know that name or don't recognize his name, one of my favorite movies from him was actually from 2004, Troy. Brad Pitt. Is there no one else? Is there no one else? Amazing fight scenes, amazing storyline. Everyone knows the story of the Trojan horse and all that stuff, but no one really got to see the story behind Achilles for the most part. So we got the full throttle of that one. He also directed Poseidon, that one rogue wave that flipped the thing, and you get the whole. You have The Simpsons making fun of it. You have Rick and Morty making fun of it. You have so many like pop
Fergie was
culture
in it.
references. Yeah, like you have so many making fun of that. Well, not making fun of it, but like making a callback to that movie.
Goofy.
Poseidon has a big empire, and it's one of the major reasons I would never get on a cruise ship because I'm like, you know what, screw that. It's like I'd rather get on a plane than in the water where I can't survive. Perfect Storm, Air Force One, like there's so many movies that he has impacted from the 70s and 80s that are still making callbacks to today, and I just think he's an honorable mention because like you have those impacts as far as the movies. Like I don't think we really get a fight scene from Greeks without pinpointing from that Troy movie. We don't get the dialect because I understand there's writers that come into play when it comes to directing these movies, but there's also the director that says like, hey, this will be better in this lighting, this will be better in this shot, and they have that leverage to be in charge of all those decision makings at the end. Yes, the writers give you the main plot and main phrases, but the director has the choice of editing or keeping that in the story or not. Wolfgang Peterson, all his movies from the 70s and 80s, all the way to 2004 with Brad Pitt. I don't think he did anything recently, but if he did, I would probably go watch it just because he was killing it in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s.
It's
But
just to touch on those real quick before you get on to your top director. Those two movies are like I think probably the best movies you probably could have called out for the director because I think even now Troy holds up so well. Like just the storytelling, the acting, the action in it, everything in that movie was really good. You had a young Eric Bana. It was just a really good told movie. And then Poseidon. It's funny that you saw that because I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the first like disaster movie I've ever seen. And I don't know, it was just really cool. I thought those were two really good movies. I think that you soloed out for him that I'm pretty sure a lot of people will know.
yeah, so that was the thing. Like people might not think of him as like, oh, that's the director, and so that's what happens to a lot of the older movies. Like like Steven Spielberg, you have Lucas films and all that stuff. Those are the directors that carried like the 80s, 90s things. But like I mean, Wolfgang, man, like he was in the conversation for some of the biggest box office reviews and all that stuff. Even though we said the box doesn't really matter, but as far as like If Troy came out today, or if like Poseidon came out today, I still think it does numbers. Like those movies were so good
for sure.
that I still think they would succeed in today's box office wars against these superhero movies and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
especially Troy. Like Troy's like a top 10 for me all time, just because Brad Pitt was amazing in that. I think it was one of
Oh
his
yeah.
best performances, if I'm being honest. But yeah, let's go on to my number one director. And it's funny because like I have this debate at work like every year, and it's not about this director, but it's about his movies. And I'm not affiliated in any way, but I do like me a good gangster movie.
Yeah.
And when you think of gangster movies, you can only think of one real director, and that's Martin Scorsese. You're thinking The Irishman, you're thinking Goodfellas, you're thinking The Departed. Even though like one of the biggest debates we have is The Departed considered a gangster movie? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's it has gangsterish vibes. It doesn't have that mafioso type of gangster appeal, but it's still enough, you know. But yeah, Martin Scorsese is one of those directors that can take this cast that we're so used to seeing in his movies and creating new characters for them every single time. Like I can't tell you that I see Robert De Niro in his films and I think, oh, this is the same. He's playing the same role in every role. No, he's not. He's playing a different role in every one of his movies.
Yeah.
Still a gangster in most of them, but he's playing a different type of gangster in every single one. Like in Goodfellas, he was that con, always quick with the money, and then he got paranoid. In Taxi Driver, this dude was like, "You talking to me?
Talking to me.
Talking to me?" You know? And then just the one-liners alone from all those movies, like
Yeah.
those are iconic. Like you can't think of any like gangster films or gangster one-liners without thinking the Martin Scorsese films. One of my favorite films, and is in the top five conversation for me, is The Departed. Stellar casting, the acting was creative, the storyline was creative. Like everything about that movie, the intensity, the action. Um, yeah, Jack Nicholson, man, like I was like, dude, this is probably not his best performance, but like one of his like catch me off guard. And I saw like Jack Nicholson too. Like if I'm being honest, I still like him in The Shining better than most people, but that's a different
Okay.
conversation. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Martin Scorsese and his gangster films and all that stuff? It doesn't even
Uh,
have to be his gangster films.
just the how good he is about the from start the how detailed I feel like every movie that he has is just very detailed. I think all of the movies that he's done, there's nothing you can really that I've really seen that I was like, oh, okay, this is not really a good movie or right. But for me, I feel like there's one movie that I think that sticks out that he directed that I like that I don't really hear too many people talk about, or at least in my circle of friends that I really hear talk about is the was it the Aviator with Leo
Yep.
DiCaprio? Just
Yeah.
I feel like even just in that movie where he can tell like he's the way it could have been Leo too, the way he acted in that movie, but I felt like all the little details that are in that movie alone, I feel like okay, yeah, this Scorsese really takes his time and really make sure every small little detail is in there so that you can really see it and like hit on it and I feel like it makes that's what enriches the movie for it.
And it, like just to piggyback off on that, like even a movie that just hit in my head that I thought you were gonna start describing, but it started building in my head, and it was a Shutter Island. Like
Shutter Island, yeah.
a lot of people forget that Scorsese was a part of that one, and that one was like a what do you call it, a mental play, because it got you thinking. It's like, wait, is he crazy or is he making this up? Who's lying to him the whole time? Mark Ruffalo, another Mark Ruffalo callback, as far as like him, everyone playing their part to try to help this case and all that stuff, and it's like it goes deeper and deeper into the story, and it's kind of like Inception where you're like you don't know who to trust, like in this,
Yeah,
is it what's going on in this movie at the end. But Leo does a great job. I think the casting in all of Scorsese's films, like obviously
top
he
notch.
uses he uses a majority of the same actors, but like he used a lot of these actors before they were big time names, outside of like De Niro. I don't think any of them have were like big, like especially in The Departed. Like I see a lot of these actors, I'm like, oh yeah, they were young in their roles, like they weren't like box office sellers or anything. They were just like
Yeah,
good actors that got it, that delivered, But yeah, man, let's go pivot over to you, Martin Scorsese. It's top one for me,
let's
Wolfgang.
Can be a
is
hard ones to follow, to be honest.
yeah.
I was ready for it, but now I feel like those are just tough acts. So for me, getting right into it, my honorable mention, I feel like it's someone who has a really, really bright future ahead of him. I feel like out of the three movies that he's made, and then the couple TV shows that he has out, I felt like maybe one of them was so, but the other two movies were really like super strong. And I feel like the last one that he just did was like criminally underrated. That it got a lot of hate for no reason. I feel like, but that's Jordan Peele. I feel like this dude is like rising up right now. Like just like I said, everything this dude touches from Get Out, I feel like that smacked me in the face. I was like, how is
Yeah.
this comedian gonna transition, to something serious and this type of like for lack of better words, like horror type of film, right? Suspense.
Yeah.
Like I said, it just hit me. I was like, yo, this is a great movie. Us, when that movie came out, I was super excited for it because Get Out, that's the one I was like, it was good, but like it was kind of a weak follow up. But I love Nope to death, bro. Like that movie, again, I don't know if people were just expecting like a full on alien movie because of the way the trailers were, but the fact
Yeah.
that it ended up turning out to be like a living animal alien, I don't know what to call it. The ship
Yeah.
is like a living being. That I think that's
Yeah.
what made people upset. But even still, just the acting, Daniel Kaluuya, just to me, just what he did in Get Out, and then what he did in Nope, I felt like there were such far departures from each other that you could just tell like his acting it's just so good. So I just want to give Jordan Peele his dues, just give him his flowers because obviously he's just getting started, but at the same time, I feel like with what he's already done and what he's brought to the table already, he's already like head and shoulders above some other people already. But I feel like again, it's kind of hard to follow up Scorsese because I feel like he is cinema, he is the
Yeah.
guy. But for me, my top director has to be Quentin Tarantino, easily number one. I think it was because my grandfather was a big Tarantino fan, so every time he would come home from work, automatically put on TV, and then boom, it was always Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction was
Yeah.
always on TV. I don't know why. I mean, it is a great movie, but it was always on. So I think that was like my earliest memory was again my
Yeah.
grandfather coming home, boom, watching Pulp Fiction. Probably shouldn't have been watching Pulp Fiction at that young of an age, but hell, it was on. We were watching it together. It was good. So, but I still think that I think the main reason why I like Tarantino is because I feel like Tarantino as a person is kind of crazy. So I feel like you can see that in his movies, like the way it's reflected, especially
Yeah.
like when he puts his own Tarantino twist into history. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's what I really like, right? So the big two movies obviously were Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and then obviously Inglorious Bastards. When they freaking took out Hitler and Inglorious Bastards, loved
Yeah.
it. Great, cool. It was obviously what they're aiming for that movie. And then the same thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? Like obviously that's not exactly how it went, but he put his own flair into it. I just feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot of movies that I think he gets. I feel like he's mainly known for probably. I would say Pulp Fiction probably the biggest one, but obviously the Kill Bill movies. But even
Yeah.
outside of those, I feel like for me, like one of my to get into my top, my number three movie for him is Reservoir Dogs. I feel like that movie does not get talked about enough. I mean, I think it came out like in '92 or '94 or something like that. But even though it came out so long ago, I don't want to spoil that movie because I know there's some of my friends that haven't seen some of his
Yeah.
movies yet, and that's like one of them. But I don't want to spoil anything. But again, that movie in and of itself is just like you can tell how crazy his mind works. So obviously Reservoir Dogs. Number two for me, I think it will have to be Inglorious Bastards, just because
Yeah.
I love how Brad Pitt, just hunting some Nazis, and tell you, brother, business is booming, So just like his whole thing in that movie is just I don't know, I like everything about that movie. It was really good. Like again, it gets the ending. I felt like it was just because I knew or I thought I knew how the movie was going to end because obviously how history goes. But then, when it ended up, they ended up killing him in the theater and everything. I was like, I think it just blew my mind maybe more. And then number one, I feel like I'm giving this movie a nod because of the nostalgia, but I feel like I could easily tie it with another movie. But I'm gonna have to probably give it to Pulp Fiction, Just again, there's just because of the movie with Thurman. Then you have John Travolta. It's just Bruce Willis. There's just so many people in this movie that are just like I don't know. It just makes the movie so iconic that like I think it's just one of those ones where there's probably better stories told that he's directed. It's probably better put together movies. But the fact that like this is one of those ones that have like this massive cult following behind it that I think it's just hard to knock it out of that number one spot. And then come to find out as I was, doing my research, kind of for my films and everything, because there was one that I was dead set on that for sure would have been in my top three if he actually did direct it, but he ended up just having the writing credit on it. Was From Dusk Till Dawn. Young Salma Hayek, obviously as a little kid, little boy, young. I was my love of my life, and then George
Oh,
Clooney acted
now
it up pretty well.
Salma Hayek hit us up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but I don't know. That movie was good. So I just feel like I feel there's a couple movies in there that I'm like wishy washy about. Like I might get some flack for this, but what is it called? Was it Hateful Eight? I thought that was like a run of the mill movie. And then
Yeah.
you have what is it that I can't even remember it, but it came out like as a double feature, Planet Terror or something like that. Again, just one of the ones that was just like not the best. But I feel overall, I feel like I just like the way his mind works, and I feel like he's
Yeah.
one of those people that if he thinks it, he's gonna put it down on paper, and then more than likely that's gonna make it into the film. So I feel like I don't know, like his full thought process on all his movies. I feel like you can just see it. So I don't know. I feel like that's why he's my number one. Do you have
No,
any?
yeah, agree with you as far as Tarantino. Like I like a lot of his movies. Like he it's kind of unfair that we have a director's conversation
Yeah,
and we literally put the two top five directors of all time in the conversation. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, like who else are you not gonna like? Or they're gonna be those guys that are like, of course you like the mainstream directors. I was like, but no, these guys have been revolutionary with the casting they have. Um, if I'm being honest, like Glorious Bastards is like an amazing movie. Um, I actually put that above Pulp Fiction. I put like I want to say three films above Pulp Fiction, but it's mainly because I could never get into that Tarantino timeline thing where he
okay, yeah.
jumps the stories and all that stuff. I love the scenes and I love the stories in it. It just like I just couldn't get behind it. And if I'm being honest, as iconic as that dance scene is, it's super super cringy. It just not good for me. I was like, I know John Travolta could dance way better than this, and it just like I was like, dude, I can't do this right now. I'd say it was more cringier than a Bully Maguire, if I'm being honest. Like, but I'm surprised you didn't even mention like the Django Unchained, man. Like, I was like, uh,
That's the one I said that I felt like could have been possibly. I mean, I guess it was unfair to go be like, "Hey, this could be my number one," and then leave it off the list completely. But I feel
yeah,
like that's one of the ones I think mainly due to like the acting that's in there. Because again, you have Samuel L. Jackson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jamie Foxx. There's so many people in that movie. I feel like that's another one that I was really hard. It was really hard to leave that one off my list as well. And then even like Jackie Brown, I feel like that's another movie too. That's just like is so good.
yeah. Yeah, but I do agree with you. Reservoir Dogs is up there. It's a short watch. It's like I think like 90 minutes, probably less than that. Great movie right there. And then Kill Bill series. It's another one of those Tarantino
That's
timeline
super
things
tough,
where it's
isn't
like jumping around, but it's still enough for me with the whole Tarantino aspect of like you could tell it's a Tarantino film.
it? Mhm.
I know these two top directors are really highlighting this generation, and it sucks to see that now with the directors and all that stuff where it's hard to compare when I think it's unfair because of the superhero mantra, right? Like the as
Yeah,
ever since the MCU, which I'm glad it happened, like we're getting this whole superhero buff and all that stuff. It's hard to create movies to compete with that in box office numbers because no one's gonna pay for that or invest in these movies enough to create like authentic movies like we had.
yeah.
Like, you ever watched the movie Heat?
Heat, yeah, I've seen it. Like I haven't seen it in a while, but yeah, I've seen Heat. Yeah.
Yeah, so Michael Mann, another one with he had what was it? Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in it.
Mhm.
Them going at it. That was a good movie.
I feel like
Um,
mid to late '90s and maybe a little bit early 2000s. I felt like that's when you've seen a lot of Pacino and De Niro like going head
Yeah.
to head, and like in almost every movie.
No, facts, facts. And then that's the thing as far as like we still have like all these great actors and all this lineup and all that stuff, but I feel like we go into this new mainstream agenda where it's like rom coms were cool, comedy were cool, but now it's just like let's make a superhero movie and let's just try to compete with that. Like Avatar, not the last Airbender one, like the I think James Patterson,
Yeah,
um, creating this whole new world to try to compete with like the Star Wars series, like and it did numbers. It's I think it's grossed higher than most of the Avenger movies or any solo Marvel movies.
I
So it's
think
like
right now the first Avatar I think is the highest grossing film of all time, but
that's what I'm saying. So
that's due to it being re-released like three times though.
yeah, yeah, and it's an amazing movie. Like I'm not saying we'll get into that later, but it just I just think as far as the directors, it's kind of hard to compete nowadays. No one's trying to pay for some of these screenplays to come into life. No one's trying to give certain directors a chance to even compete. And we're in reboot central, right? So it's either you're either making a reboot or a reimagined and all that stuff, or you're making a superhero movie. And I feel in this day and age, like
Everything has
just
to be a franchise, to be honest.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
can't
it
get
has
three movies out of that idea, they don't want it.
yeah, it has to carry, right? Like what is the movies we did now? Godzilla, Planet of the Apes, all reboots or remastered, all series and all that stuff. Coming up, we have Deadpool, part of the MCU, and it literally we've been doing like nothing but reboots this year. Like I kind of want to look into if we could do one film that's not a reboot and it's like an original film. I think Civil War was probably our only one that was like an original thought process,
Yeah,
but it was based
yeah.
off of a book. Regardless, I think I'm gonna do the research and see if we could find a director, like a solo film. Let's see how it carries and see what it does. But yeah, I think that's what a lot of directors fall short on this now in this era of movies because everything's like we said a reboot or has to be a franchise.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, you heard our takes on our top directors. Let us know if you guys have any top directors, or maybe if you agree with us. Let us know down in the comments below. Again, this was a list of questions that we wanted you guys to ask us on our Instagram. So if you're not following us on Instagram at Talk That Talk Reviews, follow us there as well. That we can be part of those questions. This was one of many questions that we got. So again, this is just one of the videos in a string of videos that we plan on putting out from your guys' questions. So thank you guys for being with us in this one. Again, I'm Adriel Ramirez. That's Alex Martinez, and thank you for joining us in this episode of Let's Talk About It. See you guys in the next one.
Peace.